Our protagonist's story begins in a classroom, where he sits silently, ignoring his classmates' meaningless chatter. Suddenly the door opens, and a guy with an arrogant smile enters the room. All of his friends greet him, and a female student asks about his sales. The arrogant guy thinks it should be obvious as he reveals his sales of 48 million won in just a month. Her jaw drops, and his friends hope he's ready to throw a party. The guy lets them know they're all going to Doom Perignon this time. His friends sound excited, but the guy becomes serious out of nowhere and approaches the protagonist. He slams Park's head on the table and believes he has made things clear. The guy continues slamming Park's head and reminds him to buy next time or else he's going to get it. Park takes everything silently and holds himself back. The ones watching advise the arrogant bully to stop, or else he might get punished for it. He reminds them the teachers are literal scums. All he needs to throw is a little bribe. He forgets about the consequences and keeps beating the crap out of our protagonist. Park gives him a cold look, but the guy doesn't take the hint and keeps provoking our boy. The bully knows he can't turn to the police either because he's completely broke. He continues to annoy the protagonist, whose face shows clear frustration. Park can never forget what happened 2 years ago. Apparently, a high school gang suddenly gained the whole nation's attention. It was known as Nexus. Our boy was the one who stood against the gang's leader, Cheonsu Kim, all by himself. Just when Park thought things were finally over, his situation took a sudden turn when the gang's lackeys filed a suit against him. He couldn't win against fake yet consistent evidence, and in the end, he lost the case. His dad had to sacrifice his precious gym in order to somehow manage the settlement money. Park felt genuine guilt and frustration. He made a promise to never use his fists again. His father forgave him and assured him not to cry about it. Park was devastated. He learned he was nothing without money. As the protagonist heads back home, 3 dudes recognize he's Hanjun Park, the same guy who started a fight with the famous gang. One of them approaches the protagonist. The bald musclehead reveals his ring and drags Park to a sketchy alley. He starts giving Park a beating for no reason. The guy calls him wimpy, but Park holds himself back and doesn't fight. The musclehead finds it hard to believe that such a wuss stood against Nexus. He keeps kicking Park and brings up his father as well. Our boy grabs his foot and gives him a cold, terrifying stare. The musclehead becomes puzzled, but Park apologizes instantly and lets go of him. The bullies sweat anxiously, and one of them questions why his whole body stopped functioning. He finds it hard to believe, but admits Park's glare did that to him. The musclehead doesn't take the hint and grabs a piece of wood. He loses his patience and breaks the wood on Park's face. The guy continues until he's satisfied and begins leaving with his gang after feeling bored. A mysterious man appears and wonders what Park is trying to pull. The man questions if he's just scared to pay settlement. He believes Park doesn't need to hold himself back after such a beating. The mysterious man already knows Park is completely broke, so he opens his bag and throws out a huge stack of cash. He calls it enough to cover for a lawyer, but thinks it's more fun if the protagonist destroys the musclehead himself and pays for the settlement later. He questions if 3 minutes are enough to finish off the scumbags. Park hears him out and wonders who he is. The mysterious man reveals he just wishes to destroy Cheonsu Kim's life. He's willing to share more, but orders Park to take care of the large audience first. The baldy notices stacks of money on the ground. He and his lackeys approach Park again. The musclehead begins blabbering again, but our boy beats the living soul out of him with just one blow. The lackeys are stunned as they see their leader in a pathetic state. With an evil look, Park tells the mysterious guy all he needs is 4 seconds. He approaches the lackeys and finally stops holding back. The bullies try defending themselves, but he instantly destroys them with a few blows. He finishes his revenge and believes they can finally talk. They sit somewhere else in a tall building. This rich dude is quite bewildered to see that Park does not recognize him at all. So, he pulls out his phone and reveals he is the famous Junu Oh, the youngest self-made tycoon in the country. The man begins bragging but apologizes and decides to control himself. He reveals what kind of life Cheonsu Kim has right now. He's a model student who's setting an example for his classmates, the price of the Korean gaming scene. Junuo calls it complete bullshit and feels frustrated. He reveals Cheonsu, with a crappy past, still controls the back alleys as a side gig, while his victim Park got owned and now lives a shitty life, like he's some beggar. Junu is confident he can do anything with money, but the reason he's holding back is because he wishes to destroy the scumbag's life in his own way, a crappy, low, and disgusting manner. He wants to push Cheonsu and his goons to complete rock bottom. From today, Junu is willing to take care of every expense the protagonist has, from hunting down the scumbag to pursuing an easier life. He's even ready to cover the gym business Park's father lost. Junu hopes our boy lends him his fists. That's his only wish. Park asks why he's after Cheonsu. Junu's expression changes instantly. He believes it's not necessary, but assures Park he will slowly learn everything. The next day, Park walks towards his class confidently, as he knows there's no reason to worry about money anymore. He swings open the door and hears the Nexus small fry threatening everyone again. Mogul orders everyone to spend $300 on his new line again. Park and Junu have a common enemy. Junu has ordered Park to clean the Nexus small fries from his school first. Mogul decides to check the order history and reminds the students he won't go easy this time. His friends laugh and enjoy the moment while some students become terrified. Park approaches Mogul and wonders if money is everything in this world. He prepares his fists and admits everything people desire comes from money. With a single punch, Park destroys Mogul, shocking everyone in the class. He finally accepts the fact that money is status itself. Mogul remembers he feared nothing. He could beat anyone, but then he met the protagonist one day. When he witnessed Park throw hands, he realized he stood zero chance against such a powerful guy. It was as if Park was not human. He fought like a wild beast. But he got unlucky when he met Cheonsu. The gang leader destroyed Park with lawsuits, took everything away, and dropped him on his knees. That's when Mogul finally learned money is amazing. Money can solve anything. He began working on his online store and forced his classmates to buy his crap. As soon as he got rich, Park was nothing more than a tamed beast. Mogul finally reached the top of the food chain using his money. As he gets punched the crap out of him in the present time, Mogul wonders why he's getting destroyed now. The guy tries to defend himself, but Park gives him zero chances and continues wrecking his ass. Mogul finds it unbelievable. He feels humiliated as he notices the whole class watching his ass get beaten up. Park slams him on the door. Mogul gets up in frustration and tries to speak, but notices the terrifying look on Park's face. He realizes he's done for, so Mogul pathetically calls his friend for help. The fatty is too terrified of Park, so he decides to just completely ignore everything. Mogul begins feeling hopeless. He pulls out his phone for evidence and reminds Park he's completely broke, but our boy ignores his words and continues kicking his face. Mogul finally gets what he deserves as he starts feeling the extreme pain. The guy hopes he can survive after this. He somehow manages to open the door and tries running away to at least save his life. The guy calms himself down and tries thinking rationally. Park follows his pathetic ass with the intent to kill. Mogul believes he won't win against a gym rat. He remembers he has the perfect guy for this job. Mogul opens the gym's door and starts begging Seong to save his life. Park catches up, so Mogul pathetically hides behind the gym rat and orders him to somehow beat Park and stop him. The gym rat thinks about it and demands $2 million for the job. Mogul agrees to it, as he has nowhere else to run. Seong drops the weights and apologizes in advance since he needs money for college preparation. Park understands he's desperate, so he pulls out a stack of money from his jacket and advises the musclehead to avoid straining his body. He orders Seong to stay out of it, and the guy listens with no objection. Mogul screams in frustration, but Park grabs the scumbag and throws him out the window. Mogul falls in front of a teacher. The old guy questions what's happening. He notices it's Park's doing, so the teacher starts screaming at him. Once school is over, they both get called to his office. The teacher doesn't let this one slide. He reminds Park what happened 2 years ago, and makes it clear he won't stop his expulsion a second time. Mogul sits confidently as the teacher talks about Park's poor father. The protagonist loses his patience and hits Mogul with a soul-crushing punch. The teacher becomes frustrated and tries to stop Park, but he continues to beat the crap out of Mogul. The bully finally learns his lesson. A man enters the room and advises Park to stop now. The teacher questions who he is. The mysterious man introduces himself as Byung-Gwon Kim, associate lawyer at KR. The teacher recognizes the guy but wonders why he's here. At Junu's building, Park questions how he pulled it off. He remembers the principal started licking his boots after finishing his conversation with the lawyer. The scumbag bully got expelled instantly as well. Junu calls it easy and believes the guy paid for his shitty behavior. Park is curious about the principal. Junu reveals taking care of him was child's play. The old man has been skulking around a lot lately, so Junu just used the evidence to shut him up for good. Junu shares he's still not done with the principal yet. He's just using the old man to send the bully to juvenile. Once that's over, he's planning on putting the principal behind bars as well. He's determined to not let anyone off the hook. He stops talking about himself and asks if Park is feeling a bit lighter. The protagonist is still not satisfied. Junu understands it's still too early to get a thanks from Park. He realizes he should be the one thanking Park. Junu shows his gratitude in advance. Mogul is unable to control his frustration anymore. He's determined to take his revenge on Park and end his life. The next day, he begins walking and reaches a sketchy destination. A man peeks out of the door and asks who it is. Mogul reveals he's here to check the progress. The guy calls his arrival perfect and lets him in, sharing that Jinsong is here. Mogul notices a few men beating the gym rat with bats. The leader allows him to come in. He's Jinsong Huang. The gym rat notices Mogul and finally understands he's behind all of this. They shut his mouth and continue beating him with bats. The leader orders his lackeys to take away the trashy gym rat as their client is here. Jinsong wonders why he came in person this time. Mogul reveals he has another request. Jinsong calls him adorable and gets fired up. Mogul shares he is willing to pay 10 million won for it. The yellow-haired lackey is surprised. He advises his leader to accept the request and asks Mogul to explain more. Jinsong smashes his lackey's head with a bat and orders him to keep his mouth shut. He believes Mogul is after a big fish this time. The scumbag shares he wants Hanjun Park dead. Jinsong gives him a cold stare and orders him to leave, as he is not dumb enough to stand someone like Park for 10 million. Mogul shares he's willing to pay 10 million up front, and once they finish the job, he will hand over another 10 million. Jinsong gets excited and accepts the deal. Juju enters a house surrounded by tall buildings and covered by police tape. He announces his arrival and apologizes for not visiting more often. He brings fried chicken with him and wonders why it's so small. Junu suddenly recalls his father's fried chicken. He starts craving it and remembers the last time he got to eat his dad's amazing fried chicken was 2 years ago. Junu's expression changes. He becomes enraged and remembers everything like it happened yesterday. He becomes silent for a few seconds but then decides to leave. He announces he won't be able to swing by any day soon because of his busy schedule, as he's finally getting near his goal. Junu leaves the house and sees his lawyer waiting for him. The guy shares Mogul is making a move again. He asks for instructions, but Junu reminds him he doesn't want to play a fair game anymore. The lawyer grins as he decides to follow his employer's orders. At night, Park's dad gets a call from the big gym. He accepts the offer and learns his salary is amazing too. He decides to go there tomorrow, and as the call gets cut, Park's dad screams in excitement and shares the good news. He wonders how they suddenly got lucky and believes they might even get rich soon. Park gets up for the gym. His father advises him to return on time as they're about to eat like kings for once. Park notices the genuine smile on his father's face. He feels happy about it, and as he leaves his house, he gets a call and learns Mogul is cooking something. Junu explains he hired some runaway students, but they won't be a big issue to deal with. Junu advises him to just give a call if he's in trouble, but the protagonist lets him know there's no need for that. Junu gets confused, so he clarifies that the wannabe gangsters are already here. Park questions who they are. He notices a van approaching him at full speed, ready to end his life. The protagonist instantly charges towards it and tries to somehow save himself. Park falls to the ground and gets a head injury. The thugs laugh at him as they all wonder if he's some sort of masochist. Jinsong is astonished. He calls it a smart thing to do as he notices the protagonist getting back up. Park becomes enraged and gets ready to end everyone. The men grab their weapons and get ready to face him. Despite not fighting for ages, Jinsong realizes Park still has strength and agility. He believes he can win since the guy is injured. The people living in the nearby apartment notice the noise and wonder what's going on. The thug smirks and orders his men to get inside the van. He hopes he gets to see Park again and leaves. Our boy doesn't let it slide. He starts charging toward the van with full speed. The thugs laugh at him and think he's crazy, but he proves them wrong by getting closer. The thugs become terrified. Park jumps onto the van and breaks the mirror. He grabs one of the lackeys and lets the van leave. The others ask their boss if they should turn around for their partner, but Jinsong orders them to leave him behind, shocking everyone. The guy who fell off tries getting up. Park orders him to reveal where they're headed. The guy jokes around and doesn't take things seriously, so the protagonist destroys his face with a punch. He gives the pathetic guy another chance, but the lackey keeps his mouth shut. Park starts punching the crap out of him. Inside the sketchy building, the thugs celebrate their victory. Their leader orders them to hold back and not overdrink. Mogul stays silent with a face filled with frustration. He speaks up and calls everything bullshit. The guy doesn't understand why they're celebrating. He hopes they make his money worth it, and wonders what they'll do if Park finds their crappy hideout. The leader understands his words but doubts Park will appear. He brings up a Korean saying about hunting a bear. The guy breaks his glass and reminds Mogul they are dealing with a tiger. There's no such thing as a tiger hunting knife. Jinsong grabs Mogul's face and scares him with the broken glass. He doubts any knives would work but remembers their ancestors used to hunt tigers by unleashing multiple Pungsan dogs after it. Tigers like their personal space, but the dogs will keep tormenting the tiger until exhaustion catches up to it. Jinsong plans on pulling the same trick for the protagonist. He believes his men will destroy his peace and keep driving him crazy until he drops dead. Suddenly, someone almost breaks the door. The whole gang gets terrified as they notice the iron door's dent. Jinsong orders his lackey to check. The guy feels annoyed, but as he peeks out, he finds Park standing outside with clear killing intent. They're all shocked to see he found their hideout so quickly, but their leader orders them to chill out, as Park can't break through an iron door. They all assume he left after a few minutes. A lackey thinks he might be scared, but suddenly his expression changes as he sees an arm outside the balcony. Park jumps in and breaks the balcony window. The leader finds it hard to believe since they're on the 3rd floor. Park wastes no time and starts beating the thugs one by one. He's able to overpower the whole gang all by himself. Park destroys a few men and turns back to teach the rest of the gang a lesson. As they all face Park, Mogul becomes terrified but observes Jinsong is keeping his shit together. He remembers the thugs took out Seung with no effort, so he tries to assure himself and believes the leader is still hiding some special moves or tactics. He begins hoping and thinks the gang might be able to beat Park. Jinsong orders his men to attack. They all charge in with weapons, but Park remains unfazed. He grabs one by the leg and slams him into the wall. Another thug tries attacking from behind, but Park beats the crap out of him and pins him down. The yellow-haired lackey breaks a bat on Park's head and thinks he did some damage, but Park quickly proves the guy wrong by throwing him out the third floor's window. The pathetic weakling hits the ground. A biker girl comes out of nowhere and approaches the lackey. His consciousness starts to fade away, but the cute girl asks if Park is up there fighting. He happily tells her she is right and tries spouting more bullshit, so she just hits the guy with her helmet and leaves. The biker girl informs Junu about Park's situation. Junu sounds concerned, but the dumb girl ignores his words and starts blabbering about some cute purses she saw online. She demands money for any further information, which annoys Junu, but he sends the cash to satisfy her first. She gives him Park's location. Inside the apartment, Jinsong comes face to face with Park as he is the only one left. Mogul lies on the side with a pathetic, beat-up face. The leader admits they couldn't do shit against Park. He assumes he got spared because Park needs something from him. The protagonist calls him wrong and tries choking him. He just wanted to save the worst one for last. Jinsong realizes he's done for. The guy uses his bat but gets slammed onto the ground. Park begins wrecking his face. As he's punching the leader, a boy with tears in his eyes stops Park. He begs and calls it unfair, saying he's already suffering enough and can't handle the expenses as an orphan. Park hears his complaints, but the orphan starts losing his mind as he questions what he did to deserve all of this. Junu finally appears and looks at the horrible mess Park made. The orphan questions who he is and starts trembling as he assumes Junu is the one who ordered Park to do all this. Junu introduces himself and shares that he is willing to pay for the damage. The crybaby finally shuts up and demands 10 million won. Junu makes him happy by giving him 50 million instead. Jinsong, in a pathetic state, calls our boy a literal monster, saying no human can be this strong. He realizes he had lost from the beginning, so he makes a smart move and tries saving himself by jumping off the building. He almost succeeds, but Park grabs his collar and tries pulling him up, as he's still not done with the guy. Jinsong knows he's getting killed if he doesn't somehow escape, so the guy pulls out his knife to scare him. Park lets him go, and the scumbag pathetically falls to the ground from the third floor. He somehow manages to get up and run away despite having severe injuries. Junu calls it a strong will to live. A beat-up lackey begins laughing and calls Park dumb as he's just gotten himself stuck in a huge mess. He reminds them about Jinsong's father and reveals the guy is the chairman of PJ, the shipping behemoth. The lackey believes his leader's father will make the two of them vanish into thin air. Junu smiles wickedly as he learns about this. Jinsong finally reaches his house and finds his father, Haryong, the chairman of PJ Shipping, becoming concerned seeing his son's injuries. Jinsong requests his dad to eliminate two guys for him. Haryong reminds him he can't turn back and asks why he's after them. Jinsong shares the story, but his father doesn't take him seriously. He advises his son to keep his chin up and always look the person in the eyes. Otherwise, they won't fulfill his requests. With a scary expression, Haryong orders him to beg like his life depends on it. Jinsong listens and determinedly says he wants to see the two of them drop dead. The father finally gets satisfied and calls his men, ordering them to prepare 2 barrels as he wants to hunt down some young daredevils. The gang reaches a construction site. Junu finds it pathetic and stupid to involve a guerrilla troop in a high school feud. Haryong calls the guy cocky and wonders why he wants to die so badly. Junu moves forward and reveals no one wants to die, so he came here with a plan. He asks Haryong to guess it. The guy becomes confused, but his jaw instantly drops as he recognizes Junu. He becomes terrified and suddenly receives a call. Haryong almost pisses his pants when he learns the shipping deal has been cancelled by the OJ affiliates on Junu's personal order. The young tycoon laughs menacingly as he realizes his plan worked. Haryong instantly drops to his knees and starts begging. His men don't understand anything, but he orders them to just shut up. Since he's finally behaving properly, Junu orders him to get rid of his apes first. The gang of men leaves without wasting a second. Haryong begins begging again, as the deal means everything to him. He doubts his company can last without their partnership with OJ. Junu doesn't mind fixing the mess, but he wants to avoid getting his company's personal image destroyed. He's not in the mood to partner up with a gang boss's father, as he wants to maintain a perfect image. Haryong promises he'll make sure his son never sets foot in Korea again. Jinsong tries to speak in between, but his father punches him in the face and begins beating the crap out of him. Junu laughs at the sight but orders the guy to stop, as it is enough. He believes sending the kid abroad sounds more like a treat, so he's not satisfied with it. He shares his own idea to discipline the scumbag. Haeryong is willing to do anything for his company, so Junwoo tells him Jin Song's mess cost him 50 million today, which is a huge sum for some. He wants the kid to work it off, but Haeryong doubts his son can pay up that much money. Junwoo smirks wickedly and recalls their family business is sea farming. Jin Song notices where he's getting at and finally realizes he's totally done for. The guy has no other choice, so he begins fishing on his dad's sea farming boat. Inside a huge building, Park sits with Junwoo and believes he's like a villain. Junwoo admits he's not playing fair, but advises the protagonist to just ignore the matters that can be solved with money. He doesn't want our boy to get injured for no reason. Park tries putting up a tough act, but the girl from yesterday appears and points out the bruises on his neck. Junwoo shares she's their new partner, who's willing to help bring down Nexus. She's a celebrity acting as an informant for them. The girl feels embarrassed hearing such a label. Her name is Seoyeon Choi, and she feels a bit shocked as she assumed Park looked like a trucker after hearing so much about him. She calls our boy a dapper, but Junwoo reminds her not to get so close. She gives him a middle finger and lets him know she'll take a trucker instead. Junwoo suddenly recalls her stupid behavior the last time they called. She ignores his words and orders him to talk about business. Junwoo feels a bit irritated but remains calm and reveals they're here to make new plans for the next move. She believes there's no need for a plan, as Park can just whoop everyone into shape with ease. He reminds her Nexus has grown so rapidly, and Park alone can't do shit against such a huge army. He decides to begin with their combat force. The guy throws a file on the table and reveals someone might join them soon. The protagonist recognizes the high school name Junwoo is talking about and assumes it is Donghyun Kim. Junwoo calls him correct and reminds him it's the same guy who stood against Nexus alongside Park. Park remembers something else. Junwoo already knows the guy injured his knee during the first fight, which ruined his whole life. Junwoo selfishly makes it clear that he still needs the guy. Park becomes silent, but Junwoo assures him to chill out as they're all professionals. He believes it's a good opportunity for Park to make up with his old friend and clean the Nexus-infested school as well. At Donghyun High, the gang members hold a meeting, and one of them shares Mogul has been sent to juvenile. The bullying and forced purchases became the cause, so they can't expect any efforts from his side. The members laugh at the pathetic scumbag, but one of them believes they should teach the guy who did this to him a lesson at least, since Mogul was still their gang's member. The informant continues to share that the one who did all this was Hanjun Park. The high school's number one, Gyeongchol, is a bit shocked to learn this. They remember the protagonist promised to lay low. As they're discussing the matter, a student barges in and announces Hanjun Park has transferred to their school. The whole gang, including Gyeongchol, is surprised to learn this. Inside his new class, the protagonist introduces himself and reveals he's here to destroy everyone. The whole class stares at him. The teacher laughs it off and shows him where he can sit. Park walks towards his seat and sits down with Umin-jo. The guy begins talking and says he was advised not to mess with Park, but he's getting the urge to still fight. The guy clarifies he just transferred last year himself and has been hearing about Park ever since. He just wants to see if Park lives up to his expectations. The guy requests a fair fight, but Park completely ignores him. He gets annoyed and slaps Park to make things more clear for him. Our boy smashes his head and destroys him in one blow, shocking the whole class. At the batting cage, Choi still calls it a bad decision to add Donghyun to their team. She knows many strong men for this job and believes Junwoo just pities Park's friend because of the knee injury. He calls her wrong and reveals that Donghyun is probably the most tenacious man he knows. People underestimate the guy because of his small build, but they end up missing his unyielding spirit, which he used against Nexus. He believes people with such spirits can break, but they never bend. She still doubts he can be useful with a broken knee. He believes the guy might fail to retain his vigor, but he's definitely going to develop a whole new edge. She becomes silent and thinks he should write a book instead. At the school, Park walks through the hallway with thugs all around him. He finally finds his old pal. A guy comes in and kicks Donghyun for taking more than 5 minutes to bring the snacks. He thinks his money was a total waste, so he starts beating the crap out of the guy to teach him a lesson. The other bullies think beating isn't effective anymore, but the scumbag believes he can make Donghyun more scared of him to make him faster. So he keeps punching Park's old friend. Park watches everything with a cold expression. Inside Junwoo's office, Choi finally agrees to add Donghyun to their team, but doubts Park is the type to make up with an old friend. She believes it would be much faster if they just used money for it, but Junwoo reveals he's someone who doesn't care about money. He reminds her that the guy fought against Nexus just because Hanjun did. That's the only reason. He finds it completely stupid, but from what he's learned so far, a friend's enemy is his enemy. Donghyun can't see a friend getting hit. That's his real nature. At the school, Donghyun finally catches a break and sits down to chill. Park approaches him and greets the guy. Donghyun already knows why Park transferred. He doubts it's possible since the gang has grown extremely powerful. They don't only have men but financial power as well, so it's already over. Park makes it clear that he's aiming to win this time. Donghyun calls it delusional, as his determination didn't stop him from ending up in such a pathetic state. Park gets silent but challenges him to just watch. The leader observes them from the school window and calls it wimpy, seeing the guy team up with Donghyun. He orders his men to get ready to take the protagonist down. At the hospital, the doctor is happy that Donghyun is going easy on himself, but he reminds the boy that he might lose his mobility forever if he keeps waiting. He advises him to see a surgeon, even if it's expensive. Donghyun becomes silent, and as he leaves, Kyungchul approaches him and questions what the doctor said. Donghyun doesn't understand why he's here. The guy shares he's just here to check on how the former number one is doing. He mentions he saw the secret meeting Donghyun had with Park, so he came to confirm if he had recovered. He's determined to destroy Park's friend again, but Donghyun reminds him there's no chance he can be beaten alone if he's recovered. Kyungchul gets irritated and kicks the guy. He smirks and reminds Donghyun that he's no longer a sidekick and won't tolerate anything funny. Kyungchul brings up what happened last time and calls loyalty bullshit, as it almost crippled Donghyun. The guy points out that Kyungchul betrayed them and joined the shitty gang. He calls it wicked, but Kyungchul laughs and lets him think whatever, as he doesn't want to be a loyal, wimpy cripple. He doubts the guy can keep his loyalty up this time. At the school, Park sits silently as an announcement begins. Kyungchul introduces himself and tells the whole school that the famous Hanjun Park, who stood against Nexus 2 years ago, is here to break it. He calls it bullshit and warns Park to get ready. The whole class gets up and begins preparing themselves to fight the protagonist. Kyungchul admits he can't do anything in a one-on-one, but he doesn't have interest in playing fair. An army of students walks towards Park's class with weapons in their hands as the leader orders his men to get ready, saying they're about to teach Park a lesson. A few men fly out of the classroom, completely injured. The ones in the hallway get terrified and find out Park has already taken care of everyone. They're shocked to see the whole class has been defeated already. The protagonist comes out with an evil expression and invites everyone to come attack him. The huge army of students charges at once, but Park faces all of them without hesitation. As he beats the crap out of the whole gang, Donghyun tries ignoring everything and holds himself back. The fight continues. The whole school tries defeating the protagonist, but he's able to face everyone alone. The men call him crazy and realize he wasn't kidding about destroying them. They try putting him in a lock. Park struggles and ends up getting caught. A few men hold him down and begin punching him, but he's able to free himself in mere seconds. Park wrecks everyone around him. He continues beating the crap out of them, and one by one takes care of the whole school. Park barely manages to survive, and as he heads back inside, he sees more men waiting for him. They're disappointed to see he's already tired, as the show hasn't even started yet. They all charge toward the exhausted tiger while Donghyun sits inside his classroom and tries to just ignore everything. He doubts Park can win, so his efforts will be completely useless. Choi appears and assumes Park is probably at his limits. She tries to shame Donghyun for ignoring his friend. The girl introduces herself as Park's co-worker. Donghyun feels ashamed but tells her he's too weak to fight. She smiles and shares she's already aware. She reveals the protagonist already had an idea that things would turn out this way. Even though he was told to just run away, he didn't. She tells Donghyun the reason he's still fighting is because Park wants to prove something to him. The guy suddenly remembers his friend's words and becomes silent. She assures him he's not going to regret anything, which makes Donghyun think about his decision again. Inside the hallway, Park finishes taking care of all the men. He's completely out of breath after facing such a huge army, but Kyungchul appears with more men. He praises Park for how strong he is, but doubts he can keep this up against the top 10 strongest students of the school. Kyungchul makes it clear for Park, but our boy remains determined and takes a fighting stance once again. The men charge at him to attack, but before their punch connects, Donghyun hits one with a wiper and hopes Park stops taking the spotlight every time. The thugs call him a sneaky rat, but Kyungchul orders them to calm down as they can just take both of them down together. They all attack Donghyun as well, but he easily takes down one of them. Another comes forward and grabs him, but despite the pain, he beats the guy up and continues to fight. Park keeps throwing punches as well, and together they become unstoppable. The men realize they're in real trouble and question why their targets are so strong. As they face everyone, the protagonist apologizes. Donghyun shares that he used to hate Park for whatever went down, but he admits he just needed to put the blame on someone. Park smiles as he hears this. The leader jumps in to ruin the moment, and as he tries attacking both of them, they dodge. Donghyun shares that he wishes to handle the guy himself. Park and his friend run towards a door. He calls them wimps and chases after them, but Park grabs him and throws him inside the room. Donghyun locks it from the inside so he can fight Kyungchul with no interference. Kyungchul finds it stupid. Donghyun admits it might seem like that for a friendless guy like him. The man becomes angry and charges forward to attack, but Donghyun hits him hard and pushes him back. Kyungchul remains persistent and grabs Donghyun's legs. He picks the guy up and smashes him onto the glass door, breaking it. He succeeds in breaking Donghyun's weapon and believes he can't do anything without it. Donghyun removes his shirt and ties it onto his fist. Kyungchul calls it funny, but as they both exchange blows, Donghyun uses the shirt to grab the thug by his face and pin him onto the ground. He starts smashing the guy's face, but Kyungchul grabs his leg and drags him down as well. He's finally able to free himself. Kyungchul makes it clear that he's not what he used to be as he squeezes Donghyun's injured leg. The guy screams in pain and lets Kyungchul go. As the leader finally gets up, he catches his breath and becomes determined to someday take his revenge. Donghyun orders him to stop, which surprises Kyungchul, as he thought the guy had finally learned his lesson. Park's friend gets up despite the pain, but Kyungchul begins punching the crap out of him until he finally drops. Kyungchul becomes tired and tries leaving. Donghyun orders him to wait once more and begins collecting the glass shards. Kyungchul feels frustrated, so he charges in without thinking. Park's friend uses this opportunity to throw the shards and destroy the guy with an uppercut. He continues to beat Kyungchul. The guy doesn't expect anyone to understand, but still reveals he's going to feel embarrassed later in front of Park if he doesn't win this fight. Kyungchul begins losing his vision after taking punches from the guy persistently. Donghyun remembers everything he went through and lands the last blow to knock out the musclehead. His leg hurts, but Donghyun ignores it and walks out to find out his friend actually won. Park grabs his injured friend and begins laughing as they both leave the school. The chairman of the board, Dong Yeon, gets shocked as he lays eyes on the school. The guy learns Park was behind all of this. He looks at the state of the whole school and finds it hard to believe all this happened over a single guy. He laughs and orders his men to bring him Min. As he comes face to face with the guy, Min reveals they don't interfere in their students' problems, but don't mind handling the grown-up conversation themselves. Dong Yeon learns who's behind Park but still calls it unfair, as he lives in a law-governed country. He calls it unfair, but Min drops a few suitcases and believes the guy will feel satisfied. Dong Yeon smirks wickedly. He orders his men to check and makes it clear that nothing besides the yellow stacks can satisfy him now. The lackey opens it, and they all find a few textbooks inside. Dong wonders what he's looking at, so Min orders him to check the headlines. He finds information about his gang recruiting DY graduates, and the headline also has evidence of DY stealing subsidies, committing tax fraud, and much more. Min warns him to back off, otherwise he's ready to dig deeper. Dong becomes enraged and threatens the guy, reminding him of the situation he's in right now. He wonders why Min is still sitting unfazed. The Four Eyes tells him things won't stop with his death, and if KR and DY fight each other, he doubts Dong will win. Adding the death threat on top is enough reason to start a deathmatch. Dong holds himself back and orders his men to pull back their weapons. He goes straight to the point and asks what Min wants. The Four Eyes demands the whole school, which surprises Dong. At the hospital, Choi finds it hard to believe that the protagonist stood against the whole school and still came out unscathed. Park begins answering her, but the doctor appears and informs them he doesn't know how the guy has been holding up. However, he looks relieved as he informs them the surgery was a total success. The doctor is sure Donghyun will recover from this. Park begins smiling as she hears this news. Somewhere at a fancy restaurant, Junwoo sits patiently near a woman, thanking Cheonsu Kim for his precious time. She begins taking his interview. Junwoo reads the news about the school and begins smiling in satisfaction. He hears the woman leave after the interview is over. Cheonsu recognizes Junwoo and understands why his team schedule got cancelled. He believes Junwoo is the one behind the magazine interview. Cheonsu is surprised that an important guy like Junwoo is trying to find him. He feels good about it, but Junwoo smirks and orders him to cut the bullshit. He sits down and reminds Cheonsu about himself. The gang leader smiles and assures him he remembers everything, but things have changed. He praises the guy for reaching such heights and believes he is nothing more than a gamer. Cheonsu shows his admiration for the guy, but Junwoo sees through his bullshit and makes it clear he won't move on so easily. Junwoo smiles wickedly and reveals he destroyed Donghyun High. Cheonsu remains calm and starts leaving as he has nothing more to say. He tries going for a handshake, but Junwoo ignores him and doesn't show any interest. Junwoo hopes he can keep up his crappy smile the next time they meet. Cheonsu gives him a smile again, but as he leaves the restaurant, his expression shows frustration. Junwoo feels a bit relieved. He was unsure if he still cared about the grudge and thought he might end up getting intimidated, but now he realizes he was stressing for nothing, as Cheonsu's face still makes him angry. Inside a car, Cheonsu's driver wonders if he's going to take any action. The guy calls the school fight an invitation and reveals he's definitely going to fight back. Cheonsu believes this battle will be the biggest in Korean history. At a fancy building, Tae-soo Choi walks into a room full of men. He questions why he got called for an urgent meeting, despite the others sharing their frustration about it as well. Cheongyu thinks they shouldn't be so negative. As all the leaders gather for the urgent meeting, Tae-soo learns they will be talking about Hanjin Park. He thought the guy had been lying low after getting his life destroyed by the gang, and the others remember the same thing. Dongqian wonders who he is, as he doesn't know what they're talking about. Mungil Lee laughs at his confusion but guesses it's normal for a crappy noob like him. The guy mocks Dongqian but begins explaining that Park is a huge pain for the whole gang. He used to be the leader of a small district. Nexus had control over the whole surrounding area and a few provinces, but Park didn't let go of his district, which was humiliating for the gang. The bigger issue was that more and more people got inspired after learning about Park, so Nexus had to deal with more enemies. The gang poured everything into destroying whoever stood in their way, but it didn't go perfectly, which is the reason they're gathered here. He shares that the unpredictable happened. They fought against Park with all their forces, but still lost every battle. Soon, Nexus came to the point of breaking up because of a single guy. Dongqian finds it hard to believe. Mungil thinks he'll understand once he sees the guy with his own eyes. He calls Park a literal beast. Dongqian begins laughing and calls everyone a wimp, as they lost against a single guy. The leaders become enraged, and Mungil warns him to shut up or else he'll get reminded of his place. Jihyuk stops the guy and calls Dongqian's words correct. Taisu agrees as well but believes it's old now. He thinks they're overreacting, but Cheongyu orders them to remain cautious. He knows it doesn't mean anything to them, but to someone like Park, their carelessness might become a huge opportunity. Cheonsu finally arrives and greets everyone. He apologizes for the urgent call and decides to treat them to dinner later. Cheonsu reveals the protagonist made his move, so a deathmatch is unavoidable. He's already decided it but wanted to have a face-to-face meeting for such a matter. Taisu doesn't mind his decision, but thinks there's no reason for a war. He thinks they're overreacting over a crappy school. Cheonsu's expressions terrify the guy, so he instantly shuts up. He questions if he's really making a big deal out of it, but Insunam speaks up and calls his decision correct. He's willing to handle the matter himself. Cheonsu smiles and asks if he's sure about it. He reveals money won't be useful anymore, as their enemy has a strong backer this time, so he's going to need a lot of preparation. Insu touches the scar on his face and coldly lets him know he's been prepared ever since he got the scar. Cheonsu begins smiling and decides to let him handle it. He asks if the others have any objections. All the leaders agree with him. Dongqian feels excited since Park wrecked them last time. Cheonsu officially orders the Incheon chapter's leaders to take care of it and finishes the meeting. Insu begins laughing maliciously as he finally gets the chance to take his revenge. During nighttime, a gang of bikers gathers at a mysterious place. Insu reveals their opportunity to destroy Hunjin Park has finally arrived. A fat, ugly biker moves forward and asks his boss if he's finally allowed to kill the scumbag. Junu takes Park to the same burnt-up house and believes it is unfair that our boy knows nothing about his past, how he earned his wealth, or why he hates Cheonsu so much. He invites Park inside and says he's willing to share everything. As they both sit down, Junu reveals that the money he has actually belongs to the owner of this house. He explains what happened 2 years ago and starts by mentioning his childhood friend named Hyok, who was extremely close with Junu, a friend who he could call his family. As they both sat together at his friend's house, the guy showed Junu that he had come up with a stock trading AI, a software that could analyze important information and generate a recovery plan as well. Junu learned it could predict the market just by studying the outcome. He was interested in Hyok's idea, but then Park lost to Nexus, which changed everything. The gang began controlling his district, and Cheonsu's goons started bullying Junu. But he's the type to not bend easily against petty scumbags, so he fought back with everything he had. Hyok was the same way, so they both faced the gang despite being horrible at fighting. Junu believed the gang might let them off the hook after getting tired, but he was completely wrong, as the gang burned down his friend's house for revenge. He confronted the goons about it, but they called his friend unlucky and silenced him forever through straight-up violence. He became helpless, and the fire inside him slowly began to fade away. He didn't see any hope in life and decided to just kill himself. He thought about wiping his existence from the world, so he started with his friend's laptop. He decided to just liquidate the account, but his expression instantly changed as he laid eyes on the account's progress. He couldn't believe it at first, but the money didn't spark anything as he didn't care anymore. He wished his friend could witness the fruits of his own invention. Junu felt extreme anger, but it gave him a reason to not end his life. It's his friend's money, so he wants to spend it destroying Cheonsu and his gang. Park wonders why he's sharing so much, and Junu becomes straightforward and reveals it's just to gaslight the protagonist so he never gives up on chasing Nexus. Later that night, Junu calls Choi and tells her he shared his crappy story with Park. She finds it funny and wonders if he's trying to make a friend. Junu feels embarrassed and orders her to shut up. Choi becomes serious and reminds him that the Incheon chapter scumbags are coming after him this time. She hopes he remains cautious since his enemies are literal muscleheads who don't use their brains. Junu calls her correct as he realizes his car is surrounded. He knows it's them since no one with a brain would pull such crap in the middle of the road. The bikers throw buckets of paint to stop the car from escaping. The driver becomes frustrated, so he instructs Junwoo to hold tight as he tries to somehow escape. Choi hears the commotion and questions what's happening. Junwoo passes out as he hits his head because of the ambush. Insu gets a call from Choi and assumes she's his girlfriend, so he orders her to inform Park that he's waiting patiently at the JQ distribution center with a cocky attitude. She tries to warn him, but the crappy guy ends the call, and she feels frustrated after being ridiculed. Elsewhere, Park walks back home and recalls his conversation with Junwoo. He calls it exaggerated, as he was never planning on giving up. Choi appears on her bike and asks him to quickly hop on. She fills him in about the situation. Junwoo finally wakes up at the distribution center and notices he's surrounded by Incheon goons. The fat gorilla, who's the number 2 of Incheon, notices Junwoo woke up. He thinks about knocking Junwoo out again, but Insu stops him, as they're just holding the guy as bait for Park. Junwoo recognizes who they are and starts laughing out loud. He calls them stupid for just straight up kidnapping the chairman of a leading company without hesitation. He praises their crappy plan and feels like hiring them for it, but Junwoo advises Insu to have some self-awareness. He reminds the scumbag that they're the weakest goons and clearly remembers Insu pathetically kneeling down and groveling in front of Park for mercy just 2 years ago. Junwoo doubts they can hold their ground against Park. The gorilla lackey becomes angry, but Insu stops him and moves forward to handle it himself. Insu believes Junwoo knows a little about his chapter but guesses he doesn't know only one wimp knelt down, not the entire chapter. Junwoo smiles and asks him to go easy on his brother, since he knelt down to save Insu's pathetic ass. The gorilla goon becomes angry and warns him to shut his crap, but Junwoo keeps speaking with a cocky attitude. He loses his patience and tries punching Junwoo, but a lackey enters and informs Insu that Park is approaching. Insu smirks maliciously and orders Banjung to save his anger for the real threat. Junwoo praises Park for his timing. Banjung smacks Junwoo into a wall and begins walking toward the entrance in rage. Junwoo learns the loser has no patience. Insu doesn't give a crap about Park and remains confident, since the old leader knelt, not him. He challenges Junwoo to just watch, as the gang is nothing like before. Choi and Park get chased by a bunch of bikers. She tries to throw them off but gets frustrated as they keep chasing. Park informs her they stop chasing. The girl becomes confused, but Park orders her to look forward. Choi quickly stops her bike as they both find Banjung and his goons blocking the way. The gorilla comes face to face with the protagonist but holds himself back and orders them to follow him. He wants to kill the guy instantly, but his gang has some rules. Park follows the gorilla and begins heading toward the distribution center. Choi wonders why Banjung looks so big. She starts teasing the guy, but he completely ignores her. She keeps mocking him for his huge size, so he finally loses his patience and orders her to shut up. She finds it hard to control her curiosity and hopes he can answer a question of hers. She reminds him about his wimpy leader who groveled and promised he wouldn't fight again. She cheekily asks why they're still trying to hunt Park. The guy loses his control and tries to attack her, but Park comes forward and calls the girl right. Banjung stops holding back and decides to ignore the orders. He moves forward to whoop Park's ass, but the protagonist stands unfazed. Banjung was an ultra-strapping baby who became huge after hitting puberty. People call him the man-wrecker, but for the first time in his life, he takes flight as the protagonist throws him away with a single kick. The fatty hits the ground headfirst, and his goons get surprised, getting their guards up. The protagonist enters the distribution center confidently with Choi. The goons realize they're in big trouble, so they take formation to jump in at once. Choi mocks them for ganging up. Junwoo orders the protagonist to quickly free him as his legs have gone numb. Insu removes his jacket and warms up, as he wants to handle Park all by himself. He greets the guy with a cocky attitude. Park recognizes he's Mansu's brother. Insu becomes serious and throws a punch. Despite not getting hit, Park's cheek starts bleeding. Insu shares how much he desired to have this fight. He doesn't waste a single second and throws a punch. Park tries dodging but still gets hit, which shocks him. Insu announces that today he's going to take revenge for the dishonor his gang suffered 2 years ago. Park ignores his words and begins attacking, but his kicks and punches don't connect. Insu is able to dodge all attacks easily. Park tries to hold his ground against the guy, but Insu connects a straight punch to his face and mocks him for being slow. The protagonist steps back and feels frustrated, but Insu motivates him to keep fighting as he wants to let out a lot more rage. Insu orders him to stand up with a cold expression. After the former leader got his ass whooped, Insu took 0 breaks and tirelessly worked hard because of the humiliation he felt. He felt shitty after learning his brother, the strongest in Incheon, had knelt down in front of Park without even fighting. Insu quit boxing because he wanted to become a real fighter. After that, Insu put himself through hell and destroyed 27 schools and multiple gangs just to get stronger to fight against the protagonist. He feels disappointed and questions why Park can't even hold his ground anymore. He's still angry about the embarrassment they faced 2 years ago. The guy continues to destroy Park and begins cornering him, which shocks Choi. She doubts he can win this battle. Junwoo orders her to be patient. He did proper research before hiring Park, and was shocked to learn that Park has no martial arts background besides fitness training. The protagonist faced Nexus with brute strength and adaptability. Junu believes Park will win once he sees through Insu's style, but the real issue is that Insu already knows this. As the guy continues to destroy Park, Junu knows a bare-knuckle punch can inflict crazy damage. A real boxer can even tear apart human skin with it. Junu predicts Insu is planning on taking advantage of his strength to slowly destroy Park and finish him at the end with a critical hit. The protagonist gathers his strength and tries attacking, but Insu shuts him down and orders him to fight back like a real man. Insu attacks, but Park finally dodges it and grabs his legs. Insu calls him stupid for acting delusional. Park tries throwing his body weight onto Insu so he falls back, but the guy sees through it and smiles, as he isn't a normal boxer. He hits Park with his knee and lets everyone know he is a street fighter. He grabs Park and throws him toward a few boxes. The goons become excited as they think it's their victory, but Insu gets up and takes his stance. He calls what he did round 1 and doubts Park will go down so easily. He's confident the damage he did will make it hard for Park to see and balance himself. Insu calls it his victory and moves forward for a critical blow, but Park dodges it, putting a smile on Junu's face. He finally adapts and hits Insu with a powerful punch. Insu finds it hard to believe Park was able to see through him. He tries fighting back, but Park destroys his face with another punch and continues to wreck the guy. Junu is aware of Insu's scary speed, but he calls Park a literal beast and doubts anyone can overpower him in a fight with just speed. Choi still doesn't understand why Park kept eating punches with no effort to dodge. Junu explains that Park was trying to read his opponent with his body. The protagonist was able to learn everything about Insu's fighting style. Insu barely dodges Park's kick and becomes frustrated as Park can see through every move he pulls. Insu gets his face wrecked by Park, wondering why he trained tirelessly just to be read by Park like an open book. He realizes the protagonist is a real genius. He still doesn't give up and dodges Park's attack to move forward and crush him for good. Insu keeps throwing fast punches to deal more damage. He begins moving faster and challenges Park to keep up with him. Junu begins smiling and calls it a checkmate as he sees Park wrecking Insu. The protagonist calls him slow and destroys him with an uppercut. The villain suddenly remembers his brother wanted to protect the people he loved, even if he had to throw his pride away for it. He believed the most miserable man would be the one who failed at protecting his loved ones. Park keeps whooping Insu, but he doesn't back down and suddenly remembers his brother groveled in front of Park. He called it bullshit and mocked his gutless brother for kneeling down. Insu moved forward to protect Inchan's name all by himself but got wrecked. In the present, Insu keeps standing determinedly. His men become concerned, and one of them asks why Banjung isn't doing anything. Insu starts losing his consciousness. He finally understands why his brother knelt down. The guy accepts that no man can fight against a beast like Park. He feels terrified and wishes he could run away but knows he has the responsibility of his whole gang on his shoulders. Banjung and the other goons charge towards Park to kill him. The gorilla orders everyone to destroy Park and assures he's willing to take responsibility, but Insu screams at them to stop. He falls down to his knees and announces that Park has won. Insu felt humiliated when the guy he used to call his boss fell down on his knees and groveled. But now he finally understands how heavy it was for his brother to kneel down with no one taking his side. He learns the one weighing his brother down was not Park, but his own men. Banjung becomes frustrated and orders his leader to get up. They all shame him for kneeling down and order the poor guy to stand back up, but Insu accepts defeat. Junu moves forward and asks the goons to use their stupid brains. He tells them Insu is doing this to protect their sorry asses. He wonders if they're low enough to call it a victory if they gang up on Park. He calls them a bunch of fools and lets them know real men succeed when they're able to protect what they love. The goons feel ashamed of themselves. Junu asks Insu to look up. He spits on his fist and hits Insu for kidnapping him. Junu feels good and thinks he deserves gratitude for not sending them straight to jail. He calls it even and brings up the debt their gang has to pay Nexus. He knows the goons also need to pay the huge sum their old leader took from the shitty gang for the sake of his goons' families. Junu shocks them by saying he paid everything off. They don't understand what he means. As he leaves the place, Insu asks why he's showing such kindness. Junu shares a selfish reason but reminds them it's not for free. He asks them to check their phones for a message and shares he paid for their whole tuition, so he hopes they study as hard as they can and someday work like hell to pay him back. He's aware they've been trying to pay off the debt using the money they earned doing honest jobs. Junu knows they've been doing everything in their power. He reveals the only reason he's doing this is because of the grit Insu has despite all the hardships. Choi mocks him for being so nice. He gets embarrassed and orders her to shut up. Insu bows down and shows his gratitude. He promises he's definitely going to pay every penny back someday. Junu orders him to keep his crap shut and begins leaving. Insu apologizes to his men and turns back to bow down as he ruined their honor again. He determinedly announces such humiliation won't happen again. and from this day forward, they have nothing to do with Nexus. He asks if they're willing to side with him for a better future. The gang yells out they will. The next day, Junwoo praises his team as they were able to deal with Incheon. Park wonders what's wrong with Choi. She receives 40,000 from Junwoo and begins laughing as she feels amazing. The girl hopes he keeps getting kidnapped every day. Junwoo feels insulted, but she apologizes and shares she can't contain her happiness anymore. Choi notices the protagonist has huge shoulders. She believes he will look amazing in a better outfit and asks if he's free this weekend. With a cheeky smile, Choi requests Park to go out shopping with her. At the mall, Choi starts laughing as she forces the protagonist to wear a stupid outfit. Seeing his angry expressions, she decides to have him try something else. Choi forces him to dress as a beat-up rock star. She takes a picture but notices his terrifying expressions and backs down. Junwoo advises her to get her act together. Choi decides to stop goofing around, so she asks the protagonist to wear something casual. He comes out after changing and looks amazing. Choi starts blushing but hides it and starts picking something else. A few men notice Choi and remember she's the insta-babe they've seen before. The blondie decides to approach, and his friends think he doesn't have a chance. But the guy points out she's hanging around such goons, so she probably has low standards. He wants to give her a taste of a real man. The guy calls influencers overrated fantasy toys. His friend starts glazing over him, so the guy confidently approaches Choi and tries to hit on her. He invites her on a date, but she questions who he even is. The stupid blondie doesn't take the hint, so he tries to convince Choi and puts his hand on her shoulder. Choi loses her patience, slaps him, and orders him to stay back. She lets him know she already heard his chatter earlier. She humiliates the guy in public, but he doesn't take the rejection well and tries punching her to teach Choi a lesson. The protagonist intervenes and smashes the crap out of him. The blondie's friend appears, but Park shows him no mercy and destroys him as well. The guy begins begging for mercy, crying and trying to convince Park to let him go. Choi encourages him even more and enjoys the show. A worker appears and threatens to call the police if they don't stop. Choi confirms they'll stop, but the lady mentions they need to pay for the damage as well. Both Park and Choi start staring at Junwoo for the money. He becomes frustrated, but tries to control himself. At a casino, Tae-soo learns Incheon got their ass whooped. He shares that he didn't expect much from those fools. He praises Junwoo for the cocky attitude as he learns the guy covered Incheon's debts. Tae-soo gambles against a lady who looks frustrated. He assures his leader not to care about Park as they're ready to begin fighting. Tae-soo cuts the call and focuses on the game. He smiles wickedly and orders the woman to check her card. She anxiously flips it and realizes she lost again. Tae-soo informs her she has reached her debt limit of 120 million after losing this round. He calls it a good game and orders his staff to take her away for her new life. She begs them to stop, and after a bit of crying, the woman agrees to do something. Junwoo stops leaving and hears her confirm she's willing to follow his orders. He begins grinning maliciously and asks if she's really sure about doing this to a close friend. The woman has no choice, so she agrees. He hands her Choi's pictures and hopes she doesn't go back on her word. At the hospital, the nurse finds Donghyun performing leg presses. She forces him to quickly get off as he still hasn't fully recovered. Junwoo greets the guy and asks if his recovery is progressing properly. Donghyun shows his gratitude and promises he'll pay back every single penny. But Junwoo assures him not to worry, and even lets Donghyun choose for himself. The guy is thankful, but makes it clear that he's definitely going to win against Nexus. He's doing it for himself only. Junwoo smiles wickedly and hopes he gets better quickly. At the huge building, Junwoo informs Park about his interaction. The protagonist feels glad. Junwoo goes back to business and believes things are going just as they predicted. He expects their next enemy to be the guy who loaned Incheon the money, Tae-soo and his Gyeonggi chapter. Junwoo doubts Park knows about the guy, so he reveals Tae-soo is the financial foundation of the gang, a greedy scumbag who makes money through loan sharking. Junwoo wants to prioritize destroying his chapter first. Junwoo wants Park to meet someone, so they both reach a random warehouse. Junwoo shows gratitude for the cooperation and begins talking to an anxious weirdo. The guy hopes they can protect him after this. After some convincing, he reveals Tae-soo is a literal Satan. He begins sharing his story and tells them he used to get a lot of compliments daily. His friends thought he could become a great influencer, and he liked their words because he wanted to become one himself. But no matter how hard he tried, the reality was he couldn't get famous until one day he got invited to a party held by celebs with thousands of followers. He thought it was an opportunity sent by God, so he began going to their parties. The celebs he met supported him, and in a few days, his following finally increased. He started feeling amazing, but it was temporary as his new celebrity friends began showing their true faces. He got dragged to a casino with them, and despite his warnings, they kept gambling. Soon he got kicked out of the gang as well. It didn't take long for his followers to drop back down, and no matter what he tried, he couldn't regain it. He became desperate and tried going back to his celebrity gang to recover his followers. He started gambling as well, and he instantly became addicted, losing everything he had. He knew he was done for if he didn't earn it back. That's when he met Taisoo Choi. The guy gave him a huge loan, and he took it without thinking twice because he was a complete idiot. Now he's stuck trying to pay it back. The thing that makes him angry is the fact that Taisoo is the same person who forced him into such a shitty addiction. He's aware it's his fault, which is why he's going crazy. He regrets his past actions. Junwoo gets up with a serious face and assures the guy it's not his fault. He got used because of his dreams by those scumbags. Junwoo promises they're going to destroy Taisoo soon. The next day, the green-haired weirdo barges into the casino and orders the men to bring him some chips. He remembers Junwoo ordering him to enter a Nexus casino with Park and play a little. The guy becomes frustrated, thinking he wouldn't have to be involved. But Junwoo thought that's exactly what they'd be doing. He determinedly announces that he's going to take down all gambling parlors under Nexus, which shocks the green-haired weirdo. The casino workers ask what he has to offer. He remembers Junwoo guaranteed his safety, so the guy confidently shows the bag filled with stacks. Junwoo allowed him to gamble his money, and he can even keep whatever he wins from it. The weirdo orders the casino employees to bring him the chips. They think he's stupid but guide him toward the table. Earlier that day, he didn't understand how this plan was supposed to work, so Junwoo explained he's going to win everything to make them go bankrupt. Junwoo was confident, as he knew a way to win every gamble. Usually the dealers lose a few times, but from what Junwoo learned about the casino under Nexus, he believed they were created in a way to guarantee the dealer's victory every single time, which means they're somehow cheating. The green-haired weirdo knew this already but wondered how he could win against such people. Junwoo shared a plan that could use the cheating to their advantage. At the casino, the guy goes all in, which amazes the dealer. He decides to play along and tries cheating. Park yells that he got caught red-handed and shatters the window to come inside. The dealer tries to shut him up, but Park jumps onto him and destroys his face with a single blow. The weirdo thinks he won since they're cheating, so he guesses the money is his. But Junwoo already knew the casino wouldn't hand it over without a fight. A few men appear to take care of the whole mess. They threaten the green-haired guy, but Park is there to finish them off. They charge at him, but he easily overpowers everyone and humbles them for good. The weirdo begins his second game, and Park watches closely to catch the dealers cheating. He beats another dealer as he spots the guy cheating. Junwoo thinks they're using violence this time, but believes it's not unfair since he's not trying to scam anyone. At the headquarters of Taisoo's chapter, a man fills him in on everything, which frustrates the guy. He admits Junwoo is playing an impressive game while sitting in front of Choi. She's disappointed in her friend, even though the other girl tries apologizing. Taisoo says sorry for his rudeness as well and hopes she hears him out, as he has an opportunity that might be beneficial. Choi becomes curious, so the guy continues speaking and requests information about Junwoo's plans. He assures her he's willing to pay 3 times what Junwoo is giving her. The girl agrees instantly and seals the deal, which shocks the guy. She sends him the account number, but the guy remains cautious and lets her know if she lies, he's not going to show any kind of mercy. She laughs it off and calls herself a horrible liar. Choi receives the payment, so she begins explaining what they're hiding. Choi starts a countdown, confusing Taisoo. She announces the plan to destroy his headquarters has begun, shocking him again. The door breaks open and Park walks in like a beast. The green-haired weirdo follows him inside for his sweet revenge. The men rush towards Park to beat him up, but he instantly beats them up with no effort. Taisoo begins feeling hopeless and realizes no plan of his can ever help him win against such a beast. Taisoo's top men ask him if killing is allowed. He grants them permission, so they smile and rip off their clothes for a serious fight. Taisoo accepts he can't do anything in this situation, so he starts running as fast as he can. He knows the men he hired are just scarecrows with no real strength. The 2 men get destroyed by Park. Taisoo tries calming himself down. He knows he doesn't have the power, but he was always able to somehow manage with money and influence. He believes he's capable of defeating Park. The protagonist finishes cleaning the whole headquarters. Choi disappointingly informs him that the sucker ran away. The next day, Junwoo learns about the rat who ran away. He praises Park and orders him to stay ready. Junwoo becomes a bit frustrated, as he's aware it won't be ready. He expects Taisoo will take revenge with a lousy plan. Somewhere in a sketchy building, Taisoo's goon learns he somehow managed to escape. He calls it a wise choice, as it's stupid to fight such a beast. His goon orders something